Today we're going to go over prompt engineering. That is a fundamental concept that we need to know when you're talking about AI and even working with AI systems. And this is very valuable not for only for chat, but also for skills. So if you're chatting with an LLM, you can essentially create system prompts to deliver consistent results and attach them to your SOPs, or you can develop skills and let your agent decide when to use them or integrate them into your SOPs. So after this video, you're going to be able to diagnose why a prompt is failing and how to fix it using 3 techniques that most prompt engineers have never heard of, and build a chain prompt pipeline that doesn't drift after step 2. That is essentially building systems using prompt pipelines. So the foundations of prompt engineering, if you haven't heard of it, it is essentially whenever you talk to an AI. It can be a chat app or even an agent like Claude Code, something like that. And you have some possibilities of how to chat with it. So zero shot is essentially no examples, just ask something for it. So in the example right here, it is asking the sentiment of the text battery died in 2 hours, and the model answers negative. So the sentiment is negative. So these kind of prompts are best for simple, well-defined tasks with clear answers. And these are for business tasks. They aren't really for brainstorming or just chatting with AI. We're going to talk a little about that later. But in this case, this is business applications, things that you can automate and create systems around. So the zero shot is that, and the few shot, there's of course the one shot with one examples, and the few shot is with some examples. So right here we have great product is positive, broke after one use, use negative, and then it asks exactly as described, it is positive. So in this kind of prompt, it is best when you need a specific format or tone. Sometimes a one-shot isn't enough. So a one-shot prompt or a one-shot skill, sometimes AI can drift a little, especially when you are running it on a huge context window and start giving some variations of the example that you gave. So a few shot would be better. And the chain of thought is asking the model to reason. So it is asking it to think step by step, and sometimes it performs a little better using this. It is not best for all use cases, but it's best for math, logic, and multi-step problems. So a quick explanation right here is that LLMs are next token prediction machines. So they just predict what the next word is, but they are fine-tuned on human feedback, so it is more natural to our human taste. So it isn't exactly just word by word, but they have a fine-tune for that. And prompt engineering is exactly to learn how to work with these prediction machines. So what do you need to give them to get the answers that you want and need? And this video won't be just a be clear and concise in your prompts. This is going to be, we're going a little deeper than that and how to build things and with some examples. And if you look up any kind of tutorial of prompt structure or prompt engineering, you're going to come around something like this. So you have to give a role to the AI, you have to give it a task or give it a context, give it a format, and even an example in some cases. But in our case, it is building systems around it. So this is very simple and it doesn't really get the complete image of things. So when we are building skills, sometimes the skill is too big or things like that, and you're going to miss some things, and depending on the model you're going to use, it also matters a lot. So the first tip right here is that the middle of your context is a dead zone. So whenever you're building a very huge prompt, the middle of it is the worst place to build the things that really matter. So you need to keep it in the intro or the conclusion of the things that really matter. So here we have an example. And this is a morning research skill, so a very straightforward skill, but tailored for my own suitcase. And the first thing it says is the trigger phrases is when the skill will be triggered. So as I said before, this works for prompt and for skills. In this case, it is a skill. So if you are using a prompt like this, you won't need this. But right here we have the purpose of the skill. So essentially what the AI will need to do, and then the workflow, and then it goes through the step of the workflow. And right here we are already in the middle of the prompt, and in the middle of the prompt we have a lot of steps and a lot of examples of how the AI is going to go over things and organize things. So we can see right here the output formats, things like that goes in the middle of the prompt, and in the end of the prompt it has some guidelines. So these are the most critical places in your skill or prompt: the beginning and the end. So in the beginning right here we can see the purpose of the prompt or skill and the workflow, how it works, and step by step. And in the end you can see the guidelines and how it should organize things, go about stuff and things like that. And another one is switching to XML tags, and this is something that skills don't do, but if you can do this on prompts, it works really well. So using XML tags to define the task, define the documents, define everything. This is very useful on 8810, and skills use the markdown files and things like that. So as you can see right here, use the hashtag to give more importance to a phrase or a title, things like that. Like the skill itself has one hashtag, and right here the post, the title right here has 2 asterisks. And these XML tags comes from a Anthropic research of 2024. But of course, this is true with XML tags and also with markdown files. So if you don't want to use XML tags, you can switch to markdown files. There's also improvements on that, but any of them are better than plain texts. And another very valuable tip is that when you are in a conversation, never evaluate correctness by arguing. You should never argue with an AI if it is right or wrong. If it is wrong, you should just start a new context and then change your question. And in this example, we have a user asking for AI to review and check for bugs, and the model finds a bug and the user asks if it is sure of the bug. You shouldn't do this. You should just start a new context, and if you have a specific bug that it should find, you should just give it more context. So explain the error you are getting or things like that. You should just start a new context and try to ask it another way, or point it more directly. Like if there's a database problem, speak to it like there's a database problem and please check it, how we can fix it, and it's going to try and find the problem, things like that. Just be more direct and it will try to find it. The another big tip is don't is weaker than do. So when you are giving directives to an AI, even in the starting of the prompt or the ending of the prompt, prefer to use positive framing. Don't use negative framing. So it is write a response under 100 words instead of don't write a long response. This works better because it constrains what the AI needs to do and not what it doesn't need to do. And another tip that most people go over is that you can just add "this is very important to my career" and get more valuable information using this kind of emotional phrases. Emotions work with AI if you use it correctly. So you can just tell it, "I believe in you," and it will give you a better result. And of course, this isn't a really systematic thing to do, but if you need that boost of performance, or if you are desperate trying to get things to work, you can use this and get a high quality result. And another tip right here is that the last example before the question has an outsized influence over the others. So if you are running some kind of system that relies heavily on examples, you can just switch the order of the examples and get better results with it. So if you're getting poor results, you can essentially just change the examples and get the hardest example in the bottom, and then it's going to get results more consistently. And the next one is an example of a research that was tested 11,000 times with multiple variations and multiple LLMs. So you can essentially just change how you ask things, like I've said before, in the argument phase, and it just works a little better. So instead of asking what year was the Eiffel Tower built, you can just ask when was the construction of the Eiffel Tower completed. So you essentially tells the model that you need the year that the construction was completed, not the year that was built, because that can take the beginning until the end, and that could be multiple years. And here we have some more examples. So what is X? It is very different from define X and explain what X means. And this doesn't just happens with AI, it can also happens with humans. So whenever you ask something like what is X for a person, it has a different effect than define X and when you need define X. And this is essentially just how we talk to people and communication skills. After we've seen all these ideas and foundations of building better prompts and skills, we have this very important report that tells you that you don't even need to build the prompts itself, you just need to know how to ask an AI to build a prompt. So an AI wrote a better prompt in 10 minutes than a human did in 20 hours. So building a prompt can be very, very hard. It can take manual iterations and things like that. It just needs a lot of testing. And of course, AI can use the iterations that were tested multiples and hundreds of times of skills and things like that, that runs on multiple platforms and with a lot of models. So they have a lot more information about prompting than us. But all is not lost because we still need to know how this thing works. So even if AI knows how to build prompts, you still need to know how a prompt works, and if things aren't working out, you should be able to look at it and tell what's the problem. Just like with coding and things like that, even if AI can code perfectly, you should be able to look at it and instruct it what it needs to build first and how things should work in the backend, in your database, things like that. So even though an AI is building your prompts right now, it is very important to know that stronger models perform better with simpler prompts. So if you were running very extensive prompts for simple tasks like summarization, like you're a summarizer, extract 3 key points, format bullet list, something like this in a high-end model like Cloud Opus and GPT 5.5, things like that, it isn't the best idea. You can essentially just ask a very straightforward question like summarize these 3 bullets and it will understand a lot of it. And if you're using a smaller model like something like 7B or 8B you're running locally, you can give it more context to the model for it to perform a little better. And this is the same analogy with people. So if you have a full stack developer, you can just tell it to build an app and it's going to choose everything on its own. So the backend, the front end, how to build it, and it's going to build. But if you ask an intern how to build it, it simply doesn't know how to do all the steps of the work. So you need to give it more information, like you're going to build an application like this and use this for the front end and this for the back end and use this for the database, and we're going to host it here, and you're going to build it like this, like following this UI, things like that. And you just need to give it more context, just like humans. So here are some things that prompt engineering can't fix. So if you are trying to get a reliable structured JSON from a very small model that isn't even fine-tuned, you probably aren't going to get it working all the time. Sometimes you just need better models. Prompt engineering doesn't always fix context window bloat. So if you have a huge prompt, it sometimes can't find everything in the prompt. So you can essentially just switch it to a bigger model that accepts 1 million tokens. Or if you're still getting poor results, switch to RAG. So using the retrieval augmented generation. Another thing it can't fix is the hallucination on private data, but it isn't just on private data, it is essentially everything that the model doesn't know. And you need to give it the instructions and the information that it needs to perform the tasks that you need it to perform. So just going back to my example right here, I have a command for it to run a Python script called YouTube stats to get the YouTube data from my channel. And if I don't say it explicitly to the AI, it just doesn't know how to get the YouTube data, and it isn't going to find a way to get it. It is just going to say, I don't know how to get it. And of course, in this case, I have a Python script for it, but you can tell it to integrate it if you want, or you can tell it to use something like Playwright and scrape the web for it, things like that. But you need to give it context for the task that it has. And just to give you guys another example of what things that you can do is this AI Studio new model and agent called Deep Research Preview. So it has 2 kinds right here. It needs an API key, but you can essentially just run some kind of very simple prompt on a very smart model like Gemini 3.1 Pro and ask it for a prompt for a deep researcher. So something like, I want to find the best niches to sell something on e-commerce. And then you're going to ask it to Gemini 3.1 Pro Preview, give me a prompt for a deep researcher to find the best niches for e-commerce. And it's going to create a prompt, and then you just paste the prompt and then use it, the deep researcher, to get the information. And this is very, very useful. I'm using it a lot, this deep research preview. And of course, ChatGPT also has a deep researcher. But yeah, this is very, very useful to get simple prompts for brainstorming, things like that, and to get better results. So yeah, I hope you guys liked this video, and I see you guys in the next one.